Hello, and welcome to another candid conversation of the 2012 election season. This civic media program is produced at the WCKN student-run cable television studio on the ground floor of the Student Center of Clarkson University. This series of voter education programs is a partnership production of Clarkson's Communications and Media Department, St. Lawrence County Chapter of the American Association of University Women, and the St. Lawrence County League of Women Voters. Production crew for this series are all Clarkson University students. My name is Bill Wimmer. I am a student at Clarkson and assistant editor of the Clarkson Integrator. Today we speak with Joseph Chilelli, former Herkimer County legislator and Democratic for New York 118th Assembly District. Joining us is local AAUW member Ann Carvill and Robert McClellan of Seedcorn. All of you, welcome to Canvas.
Thank you.
Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
So tell me what your priorities are, maybe why you got into public service and how they
Well,
relate.
first of all, I'm not a politician. Okay, I'm a business owner, family man, and I'm running because I believe our area could do so much better. I originally came to the Mohawk Valley, which is where I live in Herkimer County, in the town of Herkimer. I moved there about 13 years ago, and I started a business. It's still going, and I'm raising my kids and family there. I basically believe from the first day that I went there, and I've said it ever since to many of the people in the district, that, you know, the people there do not realize how lucky they are to be living in such a pristine environment. It has a lot to offer, even though sometimes in the media you hear the negative parts of it, and the jobs are always an issue. But I think that our area could be so much more, and it could be so much better. And I keep reminding people, all you have to do is look at your history. Go back 80 to 100 years. These areas were booming. And I'm saying everything that created those industries is still there. You might not be the same industries, but we could expand into others and new ones. So why I'm running basically is because I think I could do a better job and bring a louder voice from Albany for the district. So I'm going to give people a choice. As a business owner, I think I could offer a lot more. Also from my experience, I was actually born in Europe, in Italy, and I grew up on Long Island. I have a lot of contacts in Italy, in Europe as well, because the business I have is an import business, antiques and giftware and things like that. And I think there's a lot of potential in the area. And so I look at everything with a positive light and say to people, this could be so much more. All you have to do is want it, and you have to have the leaders with the drive to make it happen. So that's in a nutshell why I'm running. Okay?
Mr. Chilelli,
Yes.
I have an education funding question
Okay.
for you.
Sure.
Many say that our faltering education system may be the most important long-term threat to America's economy. Our rural schools in the North Country are heavily dependent on state funding, but current methods for allocating state funds result in underfunding of such schools. On top of that, the fiscal crisis in New York State has resulted in very significant cuts in aid to our schools.
Mm-hmm.
Many teachers have lost jobs, as you know, programs have been cut, and students are paying the price.
Right.
What changes do you propose to help North Country schools get the funds they need?
Well, there's a couple of things with that. First of all, I have 2 teenagers as well. So education and schooling is vitally important, especially right now where my daughter, who is of 17, looking to go to college and schools, we talk about, you know, education all the time. It is a major priority to me. My wife also works as a teacher's aide in the school system in Herkimer. As far as changes, I think everything goes back to the budget, what our priorities are. So to me, it's a matter of addressing the overall budget, looking at what our priorities are, cutting out wasteful spending, and allocating the money where it's needed to the school system. Because a lot of it, I'll give you an example, in Herkimer County, in Herkimer, for example, we spent $12 million a few years ago on renovation of our school. Frankly, it wasn't needed. A lot of it was grant money, and the terminology was said, we need to use it because if we don't spend it, somebody else is going to spend it. But it was really minor aesthetics from the outside more than anything else. So as a taxpayer, say, why are we spending that money? Allocate it, set it aside, and use it when you really need it, especially for education. It was not for the curriculum or anything else. So as far as actual changes, I would look at the budget and see where the needs are more than anything else. And right now, I don't have an exact what we're gonna do to make it better. All I can promise is education is a vital importance to everybody, especially me, the kids, and it is the future of the area is dependent on the students. One of the things that I would do is change how we actually teach sometimes. And just to give you a little example, like I said, I'm from Europe. When students go to take courses there, they don't get multiple choices. So, you either know it or you don't. So a lot of time it has to do with the quality of the teachers, and you need to make sure that the teachers are well educated and they're professional and that they're doing the right thing for the students. But in general terms, I think that has to be a priority for us. I mean, it is our future. If we don't take care of our kids, and to what degree, that depends, again, financially. I could tell you it does need to be looked at because school taxes are a major concern for everybody wherever you go. So, it has to be looked at. The exact answers right now, I don't have them for you, but as far as, I'm concerned, it is one of the most important priorities for me personally.
Okay, excellent. Shall I follow with the mandate question? Here is a list, Mr. Chilelli. I don't expect you to read it, but it's 4 pages in a small font
Okay.
of mandates that are put on schools in our state. Some of them are very costly.
Yeah.
All in all, extremely costly. What can you do about this? Will you address this if you're elected?
Well, I think there's 2 words that I really do not like, and that's the word can't and the word mandate. It really bothers me, especially when the politicians speak, you're mandated to do this. Well, these are the same people who make the laws, so you could change it. Again, it goes back to me, what is our priority? The mandate issue has to be addressed, because if the school system or the taxpayers cannot fund whatever you're mandating, it doesn't serve anybody's good. So you really got to look at what's being mandated, why it's being mandated. Is it a priority? Do we need to do it? If you don't need to do it, again, to me, the way I look at it, the education issue basically is one part of a bigger puzzle, which all goes under a budget, a state budget. You got to look at the priorities. And to me, if I have the honor of being elected, I'm going to look at that budget and say, okay, what do we need to cut here, because we got to get our priorities straight first and foremost, look at what's most important, and then address them in the best way possible. And that's the way I would approach a mandate issue, because it's rather than say we can't do it or whatever, we have to look at what the mandate is, what the purpose of it, and how we can help the school district or whoever's funding that mandate.
Thank you. Robin?
That's a good segue into economy, and I just want to follow up a little bit on mandates, because with a few exceptions, every mandate that's put in place has a desirable outcome that we can all mostly agree on is the outcome we want. So I think that's the challenge in mandates. Is how can we get the same results in a different way?
Well, it depends, because the mandates, the state is usually the one who's telling you you're mandated. And the state, in my opinion, doesn't always know what is best for the local community. That's where I have an issue.
Right, but the actual outcome that the mandate is trying to achieve.
Oh, they're all good. They're all
Yeah.
positive. The question
Yeah.
is, how can the taxpayers afford it? That's what it comes down to. So to me, it's always about, the citizens should have the final say whether that mandate goes through or not, or it's imposed upon them. So, that's the way I look at it. The state could say whatever it wants to a certain degree, but it's, in the end results, it's the taxpayers who are going to be subject to that mandate. And if they don't want that or feel that it's not necessary, why is the state imposing that mandate? I mean, there's different types of mandates. It depends on what we're talking about. So that's why I say you have to look at it individual basis.
I'm not sure that there'd be general agreement that all the mandates are good.
No,
Just
well,
looking
they're
at
probably,
some of these,
most of them, they're
Right,
probably,
But the intention that, some of them
The-
don't, but
right.
most of them had an intention to accomplish something that we
Right.
would like accomplished.
right.
So
And
that's what I
that's
mean.
right. Most of them are
Right.
well-intentioned to start
Yeah.
off with. The question is, how do you fund them?
Right.
Mhm.
So, and continuing on budget, as you are well aware, as a county
Okay.
legislator, it's a lot easier to cut taxes than it is to cut program. And it's a lot harder, it's a lot easier to increase program than it is to increase taxes. So,
Depends who you talk to.
well,
Yeah.
well, good, I'm glad that,
No,
I'm
it's-
glad,
it's-
so how would you, when we're in a position where we've got income, state revenues are decreasing, how would you, and programs are being cut, how would you balance those? What's your approach?
Again,
You know, everybody wants to,
Listen, it's a general question, again, to me, is what is our priorities? What's more important to us? And that goes, again, to the budget, in my opinion. It also starts with a lot of town forums and meetings and see what the citizens want. I mean, taxes in New York State, highest in the country. We can't attract new businesses that way. As a business owner, I could tell you, for me, the state should be operating as a business. You cannot spend more than you're taking in. That's just common sense. You could do that for a short period of time. So it comes down to priorities. What is really important to us? If education is the key issue, then we put more funds there. If something else is, then we do that. So it's about priorities. Everything is about priorities and the funding source.
and what are your priorities?
For me, well, I'll tell you what I'm hearing. Throughout the district, the number one priority is jobs. So that's the main concern on people's mind. What are we going to do? So economics is the number one issue. Education plays part of that because, a well-educated workforce might be able to attract more companies to come into the area. So they go hand in hand. But economics is what pretty much is on everybody's mind. The environment is another issue as far as, it's very important. But, is it a priority? Well, if you don't have a job to put food on the table, the environment kind of takes a step backwards. But it's very important, There's a lot of issues that are important to people, but I think the job issue is number one.
What's less important?
I don't think there's any least important. It depends on who you talk to.
Right, but that's where you come down to cutting program.
Right.
If that's how you're
Right.
going to approach the balancing the budget.
Right. I would have to really look at it. I'm trying to think right offhand what I would say without actually looking at all the departments and everything that's in there. I'd rather not, because what's not important to me might be very important. I'm just not aware of the extent of that program. So I'd rather not say at this point in time without getting into it.
And earlier you said wasteful spending.
Wasteful spending, I'm sure, I have no doubt in my mind, once you review that budget, you're gonna find things and question, why are we doing that? Why are we spending this money on this? Why aren't we consolidating? That's another issue, You can do things where redundancy is not necessary. So, there's ways to handle, all I could say is, all the problems we have, I believe, are very fixable. It's just a matter of having the right leadership, the open-minded people to look at those issues and address them.
Okay, do you have another question?
Well, I was going
Go ahead,
to, along with that, in jobs and the
Yeah.
economy is the minimum wage. And the current minimum
Right.
wage, adjusted for inflation, is below what it was in early 1970s. What's your position on raising the minimum wage?
I don't have a problem with an increase in minimum wage. As a small business owner, the way I would look at it, actually, if you have a business that employs X number of people, then you should have the minimum wage increase. As a small business owner, that might be detrimental. If you hire 1 or 2 people, that extra $1 or $2 might make a difference if you hire that person or not. So in my opinion, it's kind of like, you almost need 2 sets of rules there, where if you have maybe, let's say, 10 to 15 employees or more, then you get a higher minimum wage as a company in that setting. If you're a small business owner, mom and pop, who really wants to hire 1 or 2 people, maybe that might be detrimental to them. So I don't have a problem in general terms in raising the minimum wage, but I might want to look at it where if talking to small businesses, that is detrimental, then I would kind of segregate it and just allow it to larger companies, corporations, or after so many employees.
Okay.
Thank you.
I have a question for you on economic justice, if you will.
Okay.
Traditionally, Female job titles like librarian, nurse's aide, social worker, child care worker, and the like are still paid less than other jobs that require equivalent educations and responsibility levels. There are currently no laws in New York State that require fair pay for job titles such as this. In fact, the New York State Fair Pay Act has been stalled in the state Senate for some time now. If elected, how would you address this problem?
Well, I think everybody should have equal pay based on the job performance.
Mhm.
So if title shouldn't matter if you're a man or a woman, in my opinion, or whatever. If you could do the job,
Mhm.
you should get that amount of pay. Pay is set by performance, in my opinion, and experience.
Mhm.
So, I mean, if that's the case, and that is one of those common sense issues, why are we even discussing it?
Mhm.
It should be a certain way, and that's it. I don't see a negative part of that. I don't see that as a problem,
Mhm.
other than addressing it and fixing it. It's common sense to me to treat the people equally.
And so how, but in terms of, so the New York State Fair Pay Act is one way to try to
Right.
bring the government to bear on that.
Right,
Is that,
and-
would you support that?
Yes, if
Okay.
that's the case, absolutely.
Often politicians say they want to encourage further development and use of alternative energy and fuels to reduce pollution.
I say that too.
And how do we do that, particularly in the face of these very low natural gas prices that are bringing the price of energy down, which on one hand is a good thing, but is starving the alternative and renewable energy?
Well, I think alternative energy, I think, is very vital for our future. We've been talking about this for decades now, but we don't really expand it. You got wind power, you got geothermal, you got solar. All these things gotta be expanded, in my opinion, and you have to have tax incentives, so people can. What I see is a lot of the times, like if I wanted to put a small wind turbine on my property, basically it's not cost effective. So you gotta get the price down of these products so the average citizen can utilize them. Because if we all did this, then the cost for whoever is left will come down automatically. To me, this is something that, again, is common sense that we should have done a long time ago. And this is one of those things that should be a major priority. Because bringing down the cost of energy, we talk about energy independence, but we don't ever seem to get there. But New York State, there's many places, including in Herkimer County, who put up windmills, and that's great. I mean, we have the natural resources to expand on these ideas, but we don't do it. And whether it's politics or whatever you want to call it, I mean, this is one of those areas for me personally, because I used to be a former engineer, that I would push. I would push because it just makes sense to do it. It's our future. That's where we got to go. So.
Very good.
Shifting just for a minute to agriculture, a large part of your newly formed district
Yes.
is ag. And I talked with a farmer the other day who told me that in
Yeah.
1977, milk was selling for $13 a hundredweight.
Yep.
His annual energy bill was $500 a year, and his property and school taxes were about $700. This August milk check, which comes sometime in September, he was paid $17.60 a hundredweight, and that included his bonuses for quality and his bonuses for not using growth hormones. But his energy bills in 2011 were $50,000, and his property and school taxes were $15,000.
Right.
And we have the lowest milk price east of the Mississippi in New York.
Right. One of the problems I've always had with that is, the United States prides itself on a free market society. And I just do not understand, whether it's politics or whatever, milk should be set by the demand, period. The problem I see from talking to the farmers, they are being told they have restrictions on the price of milk that they could charge. I think that's wrong. Open it up, make it a free market. Yes, the price of milk at the store is gonna go up, but like anything else, it should be a free market society set by the demand of milk that the farmers themselves could charge. And possibly a lot of areas that I've also seen, why not have local co-ops where the milk is, you try to reduce the cost from the middleman. There's ways to do it, but that's one of those areas that I think that we've talked about many years, but the farmers are the ones who need help now. And they've been kind of, and I've said that because I'm involved in agriculture in many different ways, except for the dairy, but I know a lot of dairy farmers. And to me, dairy and farmers in general do not have a loud voice. One of the things that I'm promising them is, you're gonna have a loud voice in me, and I'm gonna understand, and that's the first thing. I wanna understand the system, why it is the way it is, how we can change it to benefit the farmers, because the farmers are our livelihood. They are part, like education. Without agriculture and farms, you don't eat. So that to me is a very important issue as far as agriculture in general goes. How to resolve the problem, like anything else I say, you have to fully understand it before you can make a judgment. And right now, all I know is that the prices of milk should be an open market price setting, not the way it is. So the current situation needs to be changed. How to change it, that will need to be looked at. But what I would be doing is talking to every farmer, talking to those involved, and see how we can help the farmers, because they're the ones who are making the product. They're the ones who should be profiting the most. That's
Well,
just,
we may find out soon if when the Farm Bill expires, how things,
Right.
which
Okay.
is actually, will go back to the 1930s
okay.
Farm Bill.
Exactly. Okay, I have a question for you on the Triborough Amendment. The Triborough Amendment to the Taylor Law requires schools to continue paying salary raises even when a contract has expired. Triborough drastically hampers school districts' ability to effectively negotiate changes in contract terms, especially in response to economic hardship like the current fiscal crisis facing most schools in New York. Do you support legislation to repeal or modify the Triborough Amendment?
That's a good question. This is one of those issues in me that I'm not 100% familiar, to be honest with you. I believe that, education, again, is vitally important, and anything that has to do with the school system has to be really looked at and thoughtfully addressed. Do I support it or not? At this point in time, I don't have an answer for you. So I would have to have a little bit more time to understand that.
Do you have?
Yeah, we found out a couple days ago, Iberdrola, the large wind developer,
Yes.
just started a permitting process through the new Power New York Act and reinvigorated Article 10. Have you any thoughts on the Power New York Act and Article 10 and home
No.
rule versus local rule?
Well, I think home rule is always more important in my opinion, unless you're affecting nearby counties, neighbors, or whatever. I think the people who live in those communities should always have the final say. That's their community, they're the ones who are living there. However, if it affects beyond those communities, then home rule goes by the side, in my opinion. Then you've got a bigger broad of people that you need to address, whatever issue it is.
Well, Power New York in Article 10 applies to generation facilities over 75 megawatts. So it's energy that's available, obviously not just to the community, it is a statewide issue. Article 10, instead of having, sets up a siting board with 5 commissioners, 2 of which are local, 3 of which are from the state level. But they also have the right to overrule local law if they find it unnecessarily restrictive.
See, first of all, before you even cite something like that, I would want it in an area that is not gonna be confrontational or where it's not gonna cause a problem for the local people. Because to me, anything we do, we must do for the citizens' benefits. But if the citizens don't want it, then why are we doing it? So to me, local law always takes precedence.
Okay, I have a question for you on health insurance.
Okay.
As you know, health insurance costs have been skyrocketing for many years and probably several decades, and they are now eating up an inordinate percentage of school budgets. Would you support legislation that would require employers and employees to more equitably share contributions toward health insurance premiums, essentially capping employer contributions and requiring employees and retirees to pay the remainder of the premiums?
Until we, first of all, I'm all for national health coverage. So if we had something on a national level, we wouldn't even be discussing that. But yes, until we have a larger solution for everybody to be covered, yes, I would basically support that, because in the end of it, you cannot expect always the employees to pick up the tab. You know, you want to keep the employers in the area. They have costs too, and you know, and if the employee wants the health coverage, then yeah, I think it's fair for them to contribute a little more. I mean, as a private, as a private business, a business owner, we buy it out of our own pocket. So under any, whether it's state offered or an employer who's offering the health benefit, yeah, I think it's a plus. It's a privilege. They don't even have to do that, technically. I mean, so if you have the ability to buy into whatever system or program that the employer is offering, then it's up to you if you want to pay into it or not. But I don't have a problem with that.
Okay, good. Well, we're nearing an end here, Mr. Chilelli. We're so glad that you came. We
Thank
appreciate
you.
it very much. And what we'd like to do at this point is give you an opportunity to talk to the voters about certain things maybe you wanted to talk about and we didn't get to. So what would you like to tell the
Well,
voters?
basically, like I said, I'm running because I believe in the area, and I believe it could be so much more. And I think what we have to do several things in New York State. And we talked about forever about the taxes. Property taxes highest in the country. That's not going to be very inducive to any business like myself as to why would I want to invest in New York or come here. On the other hand, I think I'm also a real estate agent. I realize that the real estate market locally, central New York, northern New York, has some of the lowest priced real estate in the country. Being from Europe, I also know that real estate in Europe is sky high in many of the locations. I look at what we should be doing is looking to draw in a lot more investment from overseas. Because what you got, and I look at the 2 yogurt plants in the area further south from here, of course, who came in, took a product, and added value to it. We need to do more of that. So, I look at, you got yogurt, you got milk, a lot of dairy, and you're making yogurt. Why not make cheese? Why not make ricotta? Why not go into these added value products? We talked about agriculture. I know in the Mohawk Valley, we have some of the greatest soil for growing garlic. I started a small vineyard on my property. There's others coming along there as well. There's hops that used to be down where we are as well for the beer manufacturing. There's many things that we could do to improve the area. And I just think you have to look at what we have, the positive things of what we have. And the biggest thing that I say coming from outside is we need to market the area much better. So you take all the positives that you have, put a plan on the table, because one of the biggest things I always said is we need a plan for the future. Where does each community want to be down the road? So you have to put down a plan, and that starts with town forums and meeting with your citizens and having the town and village boards on board and putting together a regional plan, packaging it all, and marketing it out, whether on an individual location, whether the North Country, Central New York, whatever. You're packaging and selling New York State for what it has. You're adding value to the current products. So I think that's one avenue that will create jobs. There's several other things like the Adirondack Park. I've met with many people in the communities in the park about, we have 6 million acres. We're only harvesting 2% of the timber here. The timber, the forest, the wood in the park is a natural resource that could be benefiting so many people. And it's a renewable source. It's going to be there forever if you maintain it and manage it. As a person involved in agriculture, I grow a garden. I grow several acres of it. And I compare the Adirondack Park to a garden. If you plant a garden and you don't take care of it, you don't maintain it, the weeds are going to overcome it and you're not going to get anything. Same thing was with the trees. You need to maintain it, which means selective harvesting, thinning. It does not mean cutting down swaths of forest. I'm not advocating that by any stretch of the imagination. I also am very strong environmentalist, and I believe in maintaining what we have, but to help us grow.
How did the councils, the Regional Economic Development Councils, there's two in your region, do on their strategic plans in your estimation?
Not well enough. I know from Herkimer County, I do not believe there's one member, we don't have enough representation on there. in
But
our
you've
county.
read the plans?
I heard of the plans. I've been talking to people about the plans, okay, so.
And I'm sorry, but we're out of time.
Oh, well.
On behalf of the organizers, I'd like to thank you all for coming and taking the time to talk with us and for your willingness to participate in our local civic media program. Please come back next week for another candidate conversation. Until then, remember, our North Country matters.